Is there a bigger conundrum? This is Wretched Radio. Sure, there's all kinds of issues in your life that cause consternation and alliteration. But is there a bigger conundrum than the day you receive a phone call? A loved one has passed. You are asked to deliver the eulogy, to preach the sermon. What makes this a conundrum is that you don't know if your loved one was actually saved or not. And if you're thinking, well, this is just a preacher conundrum, it's not. Regularly, lay people are asked to get up and speak. Furthermore, when you're at a funeral of a loved one where you're not exactly sure which side of eternity they're on, you've got to talk about it. What do you say at the finger sandwich celebration afterwards? How do you talk about these things? We have a very special guest today. Oh, it's Jimmy. Jimmy's the very special guest. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You were just at the funeral of your grandfather.
Yes.
And you were asked to preach.
I was.
Did you love your grandfather?
Very, very much.
So this was not easy on any level.
Not at all. My grandfather was my best friend growing up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right. So just keeping it together was kind of a battle all by itself.
Oh, yeah.
But what compounded the issue is, based on your interactions with your grandfather, would you say definitively he was a born-again Christian?
I can't say that.
So then let's just paint the picture. You're home. All the relatives are gathered. Is it in a church, by the way?
No, it's in funeral home.
It's in the funeral home, and everybody, of course, has eternity on their mind, which is exactly what death is supposed to do, cause us to number our days and to understand that life is just a vapor. You had to stand up and not exactly provide a lot of comfort, but at the same time, you're not sure, and so you didn't want to condemn somebody. How did you walk that fine line?
You know, it was difficult. It was something that I put a lot of thought into. Obviously the option is to ignore the elephant in the room, but I can't do that. I couldn't do that. And so
could I just say something, Jimmy?
Yes.
If more pastors would at least consider what you did, I wonder if that might not help the false conversion rate. How many people have gone to a funeral? The guy lived like a complete rebel, was marked by sin, but the preacher gets up and says, but he had a good heart, and God's kind, and God will do what is right, cracking the door open when it's definitely not warranted. But that wasn't exactly your scenario. It wasn't quite like that, was it?
No, it wasn't.
Makes it trickier still. All right, so you didn't want to give false hope. You didn't want to condemn him. What did you say to the people in attendance?
The truth. I told them the truth. I had a conversation with my grandfather about 2.5 months ago, and he asked a question of me, a spiritual question that led into an hour and a half, 2-hour conversation between he and I, where I covered him with the gospel more than I have ever done in my entire life. And
with him or anybody,
right? Yeah, true.
All right,
true. But and that's the hope that I cling to with him, is that the last 2.5 months that something happened, because I don't save anybody. None of us, we can't save anyone.
Right.
That's up to God. And so that's the hope that I cling to, is that something happened in the last 2.5 months.
Yeah. And I think even there, we still have to be careful, because again, you don't want to give the impression that, okay, it's all good. It should still be pretty sober-minded in our response.
For sure.
But I think that there are a lot of people who are just grieving, forget speaking at a funeral. They don't know. And I still think that that is something that you can cling to. You don't know. If you know that they heard the gospel, you don't know what was happening in their heart. So often it's deathbed. where an individual is in their own heart and mind, perhaps, getting saved. We don't know. And yet, in fairness, I believe it was Spurgeon, or at least one of the dead Puritans, who said it was their experience that when somebody gave some sort of a deathbed conversion, but then they recovered, it didn't appear to be a genuine conversion. Where does that leave us? We hope. We don't know. But we can state this: if they didn't repent and put their trust in Jesus Christ, we know their outcome. But we hope that that is not the case. Jimmy, I think that's about the best you can do, and I think that's just right.
Right. Because honestly, you know as well as I do, a funeral is not about the person that we're honoring.
Shouldn't be.
Right. So what we were there to do was not preach him into heaven, but was to come face to face with the reality that we all need to repent and believe while we're here.
You know, that's another interesting take on what so often happens at funerals. Eulogy, by its definition, is to speak well of somebody. And so individual after individual will get up and say nice things, which is appropriate because you don't want to get up and, yeah, boy, he used to really beat the kids. You know, you don't want to be doing that type of stuff. But I wonder if, because so many eulogies are about they did this, they did that, they accomplished this, they achieved that, that it makes it sound like they are in right standing with God, that overall they were a good person, because so often these days, and I'm telling you, it is so often these days, most people in this country, it is my opinion, believe that heaven is gained by gaining it, that you earn it by doing stuff. Jimmy, did you get a chance to, was it Stone Cold Steve Austin?
Yes, it's in there, yes.
Oh, well, look at what we've got. We've got ourselves an example of what we've just tripped into here. Somebody sent me a link, Stone Cold Steve Austin, which is kind of weird because the other night I turned on the television, and when I wasn't watching people from the Olympics crying, what is with that? Everybody's crying at the Olympics. Aren't you supposed to be happy you won the medal? Instead, everybody's just breaking down and crying, and I'm wondering, why is everybody so weepy now at the Olympics? What happened to, yeah! No, now it's, they've got their hands in their face. Is there that much pressure for them to compete and win the Olympics? Is their life so totally wrapped up in the Olympics that they have a complete breakdown? Wasn't watching that. Instead, it was one of those A&E things, some biography channel. Maybe it was ESPN. I don't know. Stone Cold Steve Austin was on. He was a wrestler, and he was very popular. Now he has a podcast, and you are going to hear what most people believe, in my opinion, these days about how you get to heaven.
Well, you know, in regards to do I believe in God? I believe in the golden rule. I believe you should treat others the way you want to be treated, and that's the bottom line. That's what I believe.
Okay, that's a problem. Hold on there, Steve. That's a problem because we don't. Everybody thinks that sounds so nice. Yes, I like that one. Or I like love. We just need to, love is the answer. England Dan and John Ford Coley. We just got to love each other. And he was a loving person. Love is a law. Treat your neighbor as you treat yourself. That's a law. And laws condemn. They don't save. Stone Cold.
Do I believe in God? I believe in the golden rule. I believe you should treat others the way you want to be treated, and that's the bottom line.
If that's the bottom line, we're all in big trouble.
That's what I believe. It's that simple. And I believe that when I die, I'm going to be cremated. I've already got all this written out. I've done my living will, trust, all that stuff. And everybody should, so that your loved ones don't have to mess with none of your stuff and all the headaches, the hassles, and the stuff that goes along with someone passing away. I've got everything written out in instructions.
That doesn't deal with eternity, though, does it?
I'm going to be cremated and spread out on my ranch.
Yeah, it's not going to keep you from appearing before the judgment seat.
At some point. And I don't believe that when I die, I'm going to end up in hell for an eternity for some of the bad things that I've done.
Boom. There it is. Because he's a good person.
Being punished without any water, out there hanging around with Satan, drinking tequila, and probably wouldn't let me have any tequila because he's Satan and he's supposed to be mean. And so I'm in this eternal pit of fire.
Well, little does he know, it's not Satan who runs hell. It is God himself.
With a bunch of other riffraff who were sinners just like me. On the other hand, I also don't believe I'll be kicking it up there at the pearly gates, hanging out with God and Jesus and everybody else out there, drinking champagne or mimosas.
Stone Cold doesn't know the gospel, nor do most people in this country, shockingly. Whether it's at a funeral or elsewhere, you have family gathered, please make sure that they understand the gospel clearly. This is Wretched Radio. Hello, Maria. This is Todd Friel from your auto insurance company, noticing you're not taking advantage of any of our life insurance policies. Really? Oh, really? You're not afraid to die? That's funny. Listen to this clip from Paul Washer.
I'm talking about you.
So what do you think of that, Maria?